What is going on, YouTube? It's Wes here from psychrocklive, and I'm so glad to be back with another video. I was gonna take a break from doing these ranking, album ranking videos because I've done 2 in a row, but this is something I feel like I had to do. As you guys know in the vinyl community, tragic thing of a lot of us classic rock fans is the passing of Dusty Hill, bassist and backup vocalist for ZZ Top. This one really hit me hard. I'm a huge ZZ Top fan. I inherited that from my father. He's a big ZZ Top fan. When I was a little kid, he took me to go see him, and it was so much fun. I wish I could have gotten to see him again. Even though they are still touring, it's just not quite the same. So I actually went together, and I made this template myself. So I just threw in all of the studio albums. I think this should be a fairly easy ranking because there's this really hot run of ZZ Top from their first album all the way up to the later 80s stuff. And there's not too much to rank here. Like I said, I didn't include anything live. It's just studio albums. I'm pretty sure I got them all. I really hope I got them all. But yeah, I got all these pictures from Discogs. It was great. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and start ranking these albums. To me, there's really no brainer on the S tier. Like I said in, previous videos, feel free to disagree with me or tell me I'm wrong or tell me I'm right. But to me, I'm going to go ahead and say that their absolute best album is Tres Hombres. It is a classic album, not only for ZZ Top, but for, classic rock as a whole. It is one of the most iconic and classic albums. I mean, it is just loaded with good songs. There's not a bad song on it. And to me, it's just one of those pivotal classic rock albums that really started this country, bluesy, huge thing that ZZ Top would turn into, throughout the rest of their career. And I think that's easily followed up with the wonderful ZZ Top Fandango. What an awesome collection of live work, some stuff being unreleased, like that wonderful Jailhouse Rock they did, and then side 2 being loaded with classic studio bangers. It just I can't even begin to explain the multitude of how much I love these 2 albums. But to me, those are easily the best. I think Tres Hombres is just a little more polished, but Fandango does have that killer kind of jam thing they do live, and they really just drop the hammer on those 2 albums, and they are freaking great. So let's keep going here. I'm actually going to take a detour. I really thought about putting Rio Grande Mud in the 3rd pocket, but I'm actually going to take a slight left turn, and I'm actually going to say ZZ Top's first album. Just because it's their first album does not mean it's not a masterpiece. It is a fantastic album. I love the name. It kind of says, like, hey, we're not done after this, because a lot of bands would be one-hit wonders in the 70s, especially for that kind of niche stuff, but they kind of really hit the scene on the southern rock blues shit. But killer album, loaded with good songs, great storytelling in some of their songs in this album, and great production. I really like it, and I think it is definitely a great standalone album that, honestly, I don't hear enough about. So, I think that's killer. So that is what I'm putting in the S tier. I'm going to move on down to A, and this stuff is so difficult because, like, the gap between S and A and bands like this is so small because, a lot of these albums down here that I still have yet to put on the board are just so, fantastic still. But the first one I'm going to go ahead and drop is Rio Grande Mud. Very sweet album. Similar kind of, I just feel like it's a hybrid between ZZ Top's first album and Tres Hombres. Absolutely killer stuff. Loaded with more and more great songs. And then that, I think, is easily followed up with, might be a curveball, but I'm going to say Duelo is next. I think Tejas is after that, and here's my reasoning. Duelo has a ton of good classic songs that start this thing about ZZ Top that makes their music really cool. Chaos is a little more western-y, in my opinion, than Duelo. But Duelo features some awesome blues numbers. I Thank You, Dust My Broom, and just, Cheap Sunglasses is such a cool song, especially the full-length album version with that woo, you know what I mean. I think those albums are absolutely fantastic. And after all that, I gotta say, the last one in the A category, it's gotta be Eliminator. Now, I just want to get it out there that I love Eliminator. However, I know it was such a huge album for them, and pivotal album for ZZ Top. And a lot of people who don't really know ZZ Top might know a few songs because this is just a radio loaded album still today. I mean, how many times you put on the radio and still hear Sharp Dressed Man or something like that constantly? But I don't think it quite as much has the heart and soul that some of these 6 albums do in terms of, pure classic ZZ Top, that 70s sludgy, bluesy, just awesomeness is kind of more commercialized in Eliminator, and I don't think, I don't think it stands up as much. And the next one, we're going to move down to the B now, and I think easily the first one at B is El Loco. El Loco is a really kind of cool album, but one thing I will say is that it definitely hits some of the notes of cheesiness, which is kind of something that ZZ Top would be known to do in their later years. But I still think there's some really good moments of guitar solo and melody and just overall still some great stuff on this album, even though it may be put forth in a little bit of a comical way, but what did Zappa do, right? So next one I'm actually going to say, I'm not going to say Afterburner, I'm actually going to say Recycler. I actually think it's a really solid album. It kind of marks the era of ZZ Top getting that really big kind of industrial, like plantation sound, if you know what I mean. They start getting this huge sound over the course of their next few albums that is just this huge, like metallic, big arena sound. And this one's definitely that. But not necessarily in a bad way. I think there's still a lot of good songs on this album. And it's kind of just a good old drive-in album. Still, I think, is a solid album for them. But we're definitely getting into the territory of stuff I don't like quite as much. Next one, we're just going to drop Afterburner there. I think Afterburner's a pretty good album, but even more over on like the kind of comical era of ZZ Top is just kind of more of that same stuff and less real drums and kind of just like this. It's kind of like they were attempting a repeat of Eliminator and it was just not quite as good. I still think there's a lot of good songs on it. I think it's a great listenable album, but great album cover though. I really like the album cover. So next up, I'm going to drop the hammer here. I'm down to these last 5 albums, and definitely my favorite of these, Antenna, and then I'll go Triple X after that. I think they're good. I think they both have a few good songs, but at least to me, neither of these albums really have anything super memorable to them. I mean, we're talking about a band that in this era, maybe even in this era, these 6 up here, I mean, how are you going to top that? You know what I mean? It's like Pink Floyd, right? And they just had so many monster albums of rock that any later efforts just don't quite fit really what they were trying to do and what they originally did. And then these, to me, I don't really have a particular order. I'm going to say that for their last 3 modern albums. But I think this is a really fair list. And I think it's a pretty agreeable list. I mean, you gotta rank the really classic stuff high, and, I still like all their albums, though. And they have some cool live stuff out there as well, no doubt. But as far as ZZ Top goes, I'm gonna go ahead and call it right there, and I'm gonna say that is their album ranked. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think this one is pretty hard to disagree with. I think I hit the nail on the head pretty good on this one. The only thing that might be a little controversial is ZZ Top's first album being an S, but we will see. Comment your list, and I'd love to hear from you guys. Once again, RIP, R.I.P., my good friend. I mean, I don't know him personally, but, you know, I love his music. Love ZZ Top, Dusty Hill. Rest in peace, buddy. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time.